remember he was telling me a story when they were doing PT or something, and he was doing push-ups, and he had this freaking centipede crawl over his hand. It was a big one, right?
No, it was we were doing push-ups in the grass, and all of a sudden my palm started to burn. I pull my hand up, and there's a centipede bit into the middle of my hand, and they just like flop around, and it's super gross, and they bite. World War shook out, and then there was a bunch of other conspiracy theories involving Jews happening after that they were really heavily involved in the communist revolution in Russia, and that German Jews were undermining the German war machine to help slow them down. That's why they lost the war.
And I think it kind of ties in with everything like that we've talked about, that there's deep state in all of these different governments that are working together.
English involvement in the First World War was basically all Churchill's fault. And it's like he writes in his personal diaries about how much he knows that going to war would be wrong, but he just wanted it so bad, just wanted to get England involved in these wars.
Do you think that if World War I didn't happen, all the rest of it wouldn't have happened?
I don't know. I bet you there'd be some other type of war over something else, probably. But World War II, as it was, probably wouldn't have happened. No, the Germans were really pissed after the First World War.
Welcome back to another episode of Ill Eagle Culture Brands Red Tape Talk. I'm your host, John Ostos, a.k.a. Ill Eagle CEO, and I'm here with my two counterparts, Dion, Two Cup Larry, and Cody, Big Meat Mauch. And today we have another special guest on. It's Cody's cousin?
Yes.
Cody's cousin, Gage?
Gage. Yep.
And are you a Mauch as well?
No, I'm related to him on the other side of the family.
Okay. So you got the good blood.
I was going to say, thank God.
Well, welcome to the show, Gage. Pleasure to have you. I understand that you're somewhat of a history buff, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of what I've been into my entire life. That's kind of the only thing I really like doing, I guess.
Okay, cool.
So Gage is the first of the great-grandkids.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm a grandkid, and then Gage is the first of the great-grandkids.
Gotcha.
So he's the oldest of the great-grandkids.
Okay.
He's my dad's cousin, technically.
Got it. So second cousins.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Dope.
But I would say that since Gage and I are closest to age, he's kind of the closest one I'm for
Got it.
the grandkids. But
Yeah, because you guys are so close in age, huh?
kind of.
Yeah, you're like the youngest grandkid, except for the triplets. And then I'm like the oldest of the
But they were born
grandkids.
later.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm like,
But you're older than them.
yeah, I'm
Yep.
significantly older than like all the other great grandkids, I guess, because I was kind of an oops. So
Weren't we all?
Not me.
You were planned?
No.
I was going to say,
I doubt
you can't tell me after 19 kids, your dad was like, let's do another one.
The crazy thing is my mom did get her tubes tied, I'm pretty positive, after me. So
So you were a hella accident. Oh, no, after you.
me.
Got you.
I hope so after me, but
Okay.
I think
They're like, you weren't just an accident, you were not wanted.
yeah. She was like, God dang it.
enough's enough. After
Yeah,
that.
hey, it is what it is. I'm here
Yeah.
now, so
But so funny story about Gage. So Gage, he kind of had a tough upbringing. But he was going through a period of his life where he was like really into like emo stuff. And I remember when I was in DC the second time, I was FaceTiming back home, and they were at a Christmas party or something. And I talked to Gage, and I remember seeing him. He had like long black hair, and it was like covering one eye. And he was like, he would do the hair flip every now and again, and just like super emo, right? And then I found out that he was joining the active duty Army infantry. And at the time it was 2017, 2018. So,
You went infantry, too.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Afghanistan was still hopping, and all that stuff was still hopping. And I was trying to talk him out of it. I was like, don't do it. Like, chances are you're probably going to get deployed somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
But he wanted to, like, that was his whole thing. So, he ended up going. didn't talk to him for a couple years, and then he got deployed, or he was stationed out in Hawaii at the time. And in 2019, our grandpa had passed away, and he meant a lot to both of us, and especially like us being in the military. And my grandpa was in the military, and
Sure.
so he flew home for some leave to come to the funeral. And like I said, I haven't seen him for years. Last time I saw him was on the FaceTime with the long black hair.
On the FaceTime. I'm young. We're both young.
On the FaceTime. On FaceTime. But anyways, but he walks in, dude, and I swear to God, it was like just night and day difference. This dude walked in, military cut. He had he was all jacked and everything. He had a button up on. He just looked sharp as hell. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
It's like, if there's one thing that the military changed, it was that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was crazy just seeing him. Like, it was night and day difference.
I'm curious, what made you go infantry after being just an emo dude? Like, I don't picture emo guys being like, I can't wait to just be on the front lines and go out there and fight in the war,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of a weird dude. Like, I wanted to be in the Army since I was like
That's
really,
dope.
really small. Like, Black Hawk Down was so huge when I was a kid.
Okay.
Then I just wanted the infantry so bad when I was a kid. That's all I wanted. Enjoyed it. Sucked sometimes. Guard treats me a lot better, but like those experiences from active side was great. Awesome.
And it's crazy because I just ran into one of my enlistments, one of my first enlistments from recruiting. Just ran into him at the gym the other day, and that kid looks way different. This kid was like, he was straight up just sheltered his whole life. Like, his mom was just like really, really, really overbearing, right?
Yeah.
And I remember trying to talk to her, like, when I was trying to get him in the guard. I was like, you got to let this kid spread his wings. And this kid, dude, he spread his wings, man. I tell you, like, he picked up some stuff at basic training. I don't want to say on the pod, but he came back, and same thing. He's got a clean cut. He's got some muscle, and he's talking way different. He's got more confidence. Like, he's still weird as hell, but I'm telling you, man, like, this kid's changed for the better, for sure.
Yeah.
But it was just wild. It's wild to see that, though. It's really wild to see that. But it's actually a good thing, though.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say
These kids need that.
Yeah, I would hate to imagine it if they were in one direction, which was the opposite of going into the military and becoming like men, and then they're just all of a sudden out fighting war for us and haven't changed. That would be scary.
That would be weird.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a good thing for sure, though. But it was really good to see Gage go through that transition, though.
Yeah. That's cool.
It was like 130 when I enlisted, I think, and then I was like 180 or something like that by the time I was done.
Damn.
So you did get deployed then, or no?
No.
Okay. Good.
No,
Yeah.
stationed in Hawaii, and did a couple trips to Louisiana for training,
JRTC.
JRTC, but
What part of Hawaii were you in?
on Oahu.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's the same island as like Pearl Harbor and all that kind of stuff.
Is the base like pretty nice then?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty nice. The Army kind of uses like terrible land that nobody wants, and that's where they build their bases at.
That's
so it's kind of
good.
like
Yeah.
sitting between two mountains. So like when it rains, it floods really bad. But I don't know, it's a nice base. Can't really complain. I got stationed in Hawaii.
Yeah, for
Is it a
real.
good gym or no? There.
Yeah, there's probably like 5 gyms within like a quarter mile of where I slept.
It's awesome.
Were you well liked in Hawaii as far as like U.S. presence or military presence?
On Waikiki, probably, huh?
Yeah, like I don't know. Locals, some locals like the military dudes, others didn't. I had this old lady slam a door in my face one time.
Damn.
That's about the worst.
I always heard that the locals hate
Military. Why is that?
I think it's just because of the
Stolen land?
Some of the people, some of the people that get deployed there, I think they're just
Oh, sure.
They do make a mess. Like
make a mess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm sure.
Yeah, I've heard the stories
they're-
of
and they're-
Marines, especially, you know, like,
They're 18-year-old kids, 18, 20, 21, whatever. They're probably running amok there.
bunch of punks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure that they just were just like sick of it. Like,
Yeah, I bet.
God.
So do you get to go off base
yeah,
like pretty frequently or no?
yeah. Basically every day if you want to.
And did people like you there, like the Hawaiian people?
Yeah, I never really had
Caused any
too many problems.
So it wasn't like they had a problem with white people, I think is what he's getting at.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just military personnel in general.
Yeah, they can spot you 1,000 miles away. Like,
Food good?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Did you do anything like fun, like any Hawaiian activities, like scuba diving or anything like that?
Didn't do scuba diving. I was supposed to do cage diving one time, but it was super windy out, and that was like,
What's that, like in a cage in the ocean?
Yeah, with
Oh,
like sharks and
fuck,
stuff.
yeah,
It would have
no
been
way.
so sweet. I've done like all the.
Hell no.
I don't think I could do it either.
Oh,
Yeah, you were really big into hiking.
yeah, I still do. Yeah.
I remember he was telling me a story when they were doing PT or something, and he was doing push-ups, and he had this freaking centipede crawl over his hand. It was a big one, right?
No, it was we were doing push-ups in the grass, and all of a sudden my palm started to burn. I pull my hand up, and there's a centipede bit into the middle of my hand, and they just like flop around, and it's super gross when they bite you.
God,
I couldn't
like
imagine.
sent those.
Yeah.
Oh,
Huge.
dude,
I thought those
centipedes.
things were like deadly or poisonous.
No, I don't think they're poisonous.
Okay.
But
At least not that one.
when you're on the field and you sleep, they crawl all over you. They like your heat, so you just have to like sleep and pretend that they're not crawling all over you.
Oh, yeah, no way.
I'd be just like dog tired. You just like, yeah, I didn't sleep last night, but that's fine.
Centipedes are the creepiest thing. Like I don't like spiders, but centipedes, like to me, are my number one phobia.
I'd have to have a hoodie. I'm like sleeping backwards like this. I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah, people like you just got to go to bed before they start crawling on
Yeah.
you. Just pretend they're not there.
There's always a rule, like whenever you're sleeping in like that kind of climate, you have to put your socks over your boots because otherwise they'll crawl in your
Yeah,
boots.
yeah.
I always sit there and shake my boots out every time I'm super paranoid about putting my foot in there and there's a scorpion or something.
Yep.
Oh God.
Yep. So Gage decided he came to work for us for a little bit as an assistant recruiter, but he really wanted to try his hand at special forces, and you actually went out and did that, right?
Yeah, I did
So-
like the first part.
Where was that at?
I was in Colorado. It's just outside of Denver.
Which group was that?
19th group. It was like their initial selection because they're running it through the guard. So they need to make sure that you pass the actual selection.
Yep.
So they run.
So they give you like a little taste of what, and just to make sure that you can maybe
Yeah.
do it.
So you're not.
So what did that look like for?
It was same stuff as every other school when you first get there. Like you do a PT test and you do a 12-mile ruck for time and all that kind of stuff. And then they just smoke the piss out of you for the next 2 days
Yeah,
and 3 days, whatever it was. And then that was basically it. Like they gave you,
it was 3 days, right? Or 4 days?
it was 4 days altogether. Yep.
They just offered this, like the guard offered it, and you were like, "Sure, I'll try it." Or it
you
was
got like letters of recommendation and stuff, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
not everybody that
Yeah,
can just
someone
go.
can.
It's just
Anybody can basically go, but
Yeah.
the letter of recommendation really
helped.
helps. Yeah. And yeah, it was just, they just smoked you and see if you're going to quit. And if you survive, then they move you forward. I ended up tearing my meniscus, it sounds like, when I went through PT. And I don't know. I don't really know a whole lot about the body, but it's fixed now. So I'll be finishing that
But
up.
you ended up like pretty high at the top of the group you were in, right?
I did really good on my ruck and my runs and that kind of stuff. I was top quarter on all that kind of stuff. The end of it was just surviving. I don't feel like I did that great, but like it was nice to know where I was at so I could like improve on where I was doing bad at, I guess.
You know how many people dropped out?
I think we had 22 at the start and I think 7 finished, but they only picked 6.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that would suck to be.
Yeah.
You're like the
that
seventh
seventh
guy.
one
Like everybody else is gone. Like I can't just go. Like what are we talking?
I made it. Yeah. What?
And that was, I think he was like short on his run time or something. So I think they would have been a little bit nicer about it, I think, as long as he got his run time good.
Okay.
Yeah, so he made it through, and then when he got back, he was like, "Wait a minute." He realized like he doesn't have like a degree or anything, so so he decided to go to school and then get his degree first, and then go back and do it again.
Yep.
But you just have to take a PT test, right?
Yeah, that's what they told me is I just have to take a PT test and then they'll just move me on to the next phase.
And then go to selection.
Yep.
So this is now. We're talking.
Yep.
Yeah, this was like 2 years ago, right before I started school. And once I'm done with school, then I'll be heading back.
Okay. So you're in school currently?
Yep.
Nice.
The thing is like once he gets into that unit, they can get called up for a deployment at any moment.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that those guys are busy. And then I think they drill quarterly, right?
Yep.
For like a week long or so.
Yep.
So
quarterly?
Yeah, instead of like regular guard, it's 1 weekend a month.
Yeah,
they do a week every 3 months or whatever.
Okay.
To make the same, because they're pulling guys from like all over the U.S. It's not like they're all like local to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cheaper to do it that way, I guess.
Okay.
So it just made sense for him to go and get a degree first, then go back and then do it.
Why do you need a degree to
basically
just prove you're smart?
No, just like once you're in that unit, you get the tempo so high that you're getting deployed all the time and going to schools all the time. You wouldn't have time to go to school.
I got you.
So I just need to get a degree so I can have a civilian job while I'm doing that in between.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you went straight into the military, didn't go to school at all, like college wise.
I went to college for like a year and I flunked out.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I missed a lot of classes. I'll give you that. So you go to school, you flunk out, and then you're still in the military during that time, obviously, right?
I joined the active army as soon as I flunked out.
Okay.
And then once my contract was up, I joined the guard. We went to DC. I went with Cody and everybody else, and then been in school ever since.
Okay. So you were going to go to be a history teacher?
Yep.
But you did not.
I did not. Yeah, so basically it's been last year, 18 months ago, something like that. The federal government came down with something that said if you're a school teacher and you're receiving federal funding, then you have to call students by whatever pronoun that they want.
Yeah.
And if you misgender them or whatever, then you'll be civilly charged with harassment is what they were saying. I'm like, sitting there, I was like, is it worth just like staying a history teacher and fighting it, or just like peace out and pick something else to do? So that's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
It was stayed by a federal judge at this point, so it's not in effect, but still, I just didn't want to
be a part of something like that. Yeah.
Which to me is very sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad because not only are they struggling to find teachers right now, but they're struggling to find quality teachers.
Yeah.
And that
now they're making them not want to fucking work there. But that's all intentional. We know that.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. They want this next generation of kids to come out completely dumb and ignorant, so they're much easier to control and push around. So that's the dumbing down of society is 100% orchestrated by our government.
For sure.
Definitely.
So, Gage, there's been a lot of
wait a second. Can I keep on this topic for one more second? So now you're gonna finish school. You finish school this year?
Next year.
Next year?
Next year.
Like in the fall or spring?
Spring.
Okay, so you have one more full year and a couple months.
Yep.
Once you are completely done, then you're gonna go to your test that you have to do.
Yep.
That's gonna be easy. You'll pass it. The flying colors.
You're talking special forces training or whatever,
yeah.
so right? Okay.
Yeah, it's like altogether it'll be like a year and a half of stuff you got to do.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Do you get paid?
Yeah.
The whole time? Okay. So that's all you do.
Yep.
Do you have to stay there for a year and a half, or you're coming home every once in a while? And
the first 6 months you'll be like going back and forth. So first you got to go to selection, then you got to get selected, and then you come back, you got to go to airborne school, come back, and then sometimes they make you do like ALC or something like that. I've heard, I'm not 100% sure if that's true, like your leadership courses, and then you go through their actual Q course, their pipeline. That's a year long, and that includes like language training and like a bunch of tactical training and that kind of thing.
okay, so you live in Fargo or no?
Wapton.
Wapton. Yeah, you told me that. Yeah, that's pretty wild. I don't know. That's a long time. So you have to redo what you already did, though. That first training that you did.
Just the PT test.
Just a
just
PT
the, just
test.
the PT test. That I mean, I might show up and they'd be like, "No, dude, you got to redo it again."
Yeah.
I'm expecting that. So, but it's whatever.
Are you training hard right now, or are you waiting to kind of like gear up into it? Just because obviously that's a lot of wear and tear on your body.
Yeah, I had a knee injury, and I just finished like PT for all that, and my knee seems to be holding up pretty good, but like my strength is not there. Like my back squat and my bench are about comparable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so I gotta like get caught back up basically.
that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's a fun process. I tore my whole knee up, and
Yeah.
I remember like back when I first started being able to walk, I was in high school, and I would just grab like the skin on my leg, and I'd be able to just pull it up like the back of a dog's neck. It was so disgusting because of all the atrophied muscle.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was just all gone. It was just bone and fat. Like that was it. So that's a fun little process, but you come back stronger for sure. So, but that's pretty cool. I mean, that's gonna be fun. That'll be awesome to experience.
It's really hard staying at school because I'm just so impatient. I just want to get it all done. And
Yeah. What are you going for now then?
land surveying.
Land surveying?
Yep. It's just defining borders between people's properties and stuff like that, determining elevations so you can set up buildings and stuff.
Sounds like a nice job.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Science school's got like a really good program for it. It's really awesome. I
Nice.
recommend it to people.
Nice.
We actually had a former gym member that just got through CAG.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
No idea where he's at now.
Keg.
Delta Force. Yeah.
It's like the top tier of the Army.
Yeah, it's like the highest you can go in the Army as far as like cool guy stuff. Like I had a buddy telling me about some of the qualifications for it, and like it's insane. You do like 100-mile ruck march and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah. It's hard.
Who is it?
John.
That's his social media name, I think. Yeah. Can't remember his last name.
We'll have to look that up. I can't
Jeez. what
say
is
I
his
can
name?
recall his face.
I don't know if you would know him.
Yeah, you might know him.
That sounds wild though.
Yeah, he's a bad dude.
And
That's
he's
cool.
like my age. Like he's my age, and he just got through CAG.
Yeah, most of those guys are pretty deep in their 30s.
That's insane.
Yep.
Because they want more like
Mature.
mature. Yeah.
I hope to be able to stand up out of bed when I'm in my 30s. So
He trained like he was very serious about his training.
I can still.
I remember he came home and visited.
When you're that age, you're not gonna feel like you're the age you thought it was when you were this age.
Yeah.
You watch.
I feel like I'm gonna be beat. That's impressive though. I mean, that's really cool. Being a 25-year-old young guy compared to being a 35-year-old man doing that that's a different step. That's like thinking of like Tom Brady playing football still a couple years ago. Like that's very impressive for somebody of that age. I mean, it's not old. We're not talking it's old, but it's just to be able to keep your body up
Young
in
man's game.
peak shape
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You can't do it for long.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
As long as you put your mind to it, train hard.
Yeah.
But I remember when he came back to visit, he was we were going to work out, but he was doing specific workouts to ensure that he was going to pass whatever PT test or whatever he had to do. He was doing specific workouts for that. So
That's wild. Yeah, I'm sure you have to just follow what the guy before you did, or a couple of guys. Like, it's got to be a system that you have down, just like bodybuilding and stuff like that. So
yeah, I linked you guys up, right?
Yep. Yeah, I talked to him.
Lear,
John Lear.
John Lear.
Yeah, he was telling me he's got like group gets like specific trainers in for like whatever your goals are. So he says he had like a specific trainer for like training him up to go to CAG selection.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
that's cool. So have you been paying attention to the news lately?
Yeah.
So the word Nazi has been thrown around a lot,
Yes, it has.
and Hitler and whatever. And I thought, what better person to bring on to give us a history lesson on basically how World War II happened with the Nazi rise to power, but it really kind of all started from World War I.
Yep.
So give us a history lesson on World War I, because all I know is like Archduke Ferdinand got assassinated and then shit popped off.
Yep.
And then shit happened. And of course, the United States came in later and saved the day, but we were later,
Yep. Yeah, we were in for like the last 4 months of the war, I think it was.
So what happened?
So, okay, 1914 is when the war took off. A Serbian national killed Archduke Ferdinand.
Who is
He,
Austria?
Yep, Austrian. Yep. So that started a war between Austria and Serbia. Serbia was allied with Russia. That pulled Russia into the war. Russia is allied with France. That pulled France into the war. And then on the Axis side, it pulled in Turkey and Germany, obviously, into the war. And it was this huge, giant, terrible bloodbath. For years, people were fighting for inches of ground back and forth. Eventually, the Russian Revolution happened in Russia, and they pulled out of the war. And the Axis and the Allies were working on trying to sit down for a peace deal. So they called for an armistice, right? That's why Veterans Day, November 11th, it's called Armistice Day, but it's not called End of War Day because the war wasn't officially over. It was just basically a ceasefire. And so the Germans were thinking, okay, well, we're going to sit down with the French and the English, and we're going to kind of figure out a solution to this war. Well, the English pulled a little sneaky, and they set up a naval blockade around Germany and started starving the Germans to death. And then at that point, they just threw the Treaty of Versailles in front of the Germans, said, you're going to sign this, or otherwise your people are going to keep starving to death. So even though they weren't supposed to, the English set up a naval blockade so they couldn't get any supplies in. Everybody started starving to death. And eventually the Germans capitulated, took full responsibility for the war that they didn't start, right? And then they had to pay back a bunch of money to the English and the French and everybody else. And the reason for that is like the English kind of jumped into this war for basically no reason. And they needed some kind of justification for their people that this war was a good thing. So they needed some kind of money or to get something out of this war so that their people didn't freak out. And that's why they put the whole bill on Germany. Okay, so in the post-war years, Germany was like desolate. The life expectancy dropped by like 20 years or something like that. Everybody's like starving to death. And the German government decided, okay, the way we're going to pay off this huge sum of money, impossible sum of money to the French and the English, we're just going to keep printing our money out of existence, basically. It got so bad to the point where, like, famously, a loaf of bread cost like $4 trillion in German money. People were like bringing huge wheelbarrows full of money to the market to be able to buy things because it was worthless. Kids were just playing with it. They were lighting it on fire to heat their homes or whatever.
Jeez.
So a lot of Germans left. That's how our family got here. Is our great-great-grandpa August was on like one of the last boats out of Germany before America started closing down its embassy.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
1921.
21,
you're a
they came
German.
over.
You're a Nazi.
German.
Yeah.
No, Nazi party didn't come into rule until the 30s. Look it up.
They were around,
So
obviously.
Operation Paperclip was post
World War II.
World War II. Okay, yeah.
And this is like an important thing as far as like how the Germans felt after the war. Like they felt super cheated. They felt they didn't deserve any of that. They thought they could have won the war. So they were super resentful because of that. And then their government was basically useless after the First World War. And when states collapse like that post-war, you have a lot of bankers and a bunch of people coming in to suck the natural resources. There's no money, but there's tons of natural resources, businesses, all kinds of stuff that you can take. So Americans, French, English bankers and businessmen came in and started buying up all these assets for pennies on the dollar, right? And the Germans noticed that a lot of them were Jewish, and that's kind of where the initial part of that hate for Jews that the Nazi Party had came from. It's like, it's kind of interesting why there's so many Jewish bankers even today and like back in those days. Basically, before World War I in like Russia and Ukraine, where there was a lot of Jews living, is they weren't allowed to have any other jobs except for finance type of jobs because that was considered like a dirty profession, and nobody, like, working with money was a dirty thing to do. So Jews kind of took up that role because that was the only job they were allowed to have, and that's why there's so disproportionate in all these different industries. Yep. So that's how the First World War shook out. And then there was a bunch of other conspiracy theories involving Jews happening after that, that they were really heavily involved in the communist revolution in Russia, and that German Jews were undermining the German war machine to help slow them down. That's why they lost the war. And so everybody was getting super resentful, like it was becoming a powder keg, where if it wasn't Hitler, somebody else would have came along and been like, hey, you're having this huge problem, and it's all because of those guys, and that's what's going on, basically. So World War I ends. Weimar Republic is barely working, like unemployment's super crazy, and then there's like a lot of really weird stuff going on. A lot of that gender stuff was happening in Germany at the time in the 1920s, and like super debaucherous, I guess you could say, type of stuff going on. And that also led to Germans having this like hyper nationalistic, very clean social order that they had in the under the Nazi
weren't they
regime.
also like indoctrinating kids with books or something, or is that a conspiracy that, you know, they had like these sex books and stuff that were teaching, you know, pornography and homosexuality and stuff like that back in those days too, and hence the big burning of the books and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was definitely like a large chunk of the books that were burned by the Nazis and stuff like that. And that book burning was a lot of those weird gender books.
Yeah.
And a lot of the intellectual class, like a lot of those teachers came to the United States after this point, and that's kind of where like a lot of the leftist thought leaders and that kind of weird gender type of stuff came from.
History repeats, huh?
Yeah. Over and over and over and over and over again, it seems.
Sorry.
Yeah, so as far as Hitler goes, he didn't really know any Jews or anything. Growing up, there wasn't a lot in his like rural Austrian town that he was from. It was when he was a little bit over and he moved to Vienna. This was before World War I. That he noticed that there was Jews around. And it's started out kind of one of those things as like an unknown, because they didn't socially become German like the rest of the Germans did. And so he looked at him as kind of like an oddity, like a foreign thing in his country type of thing. And that's where his first interaction with Jews was. And then post-war, a lot of these conspiracy theories started getting really big, and that's where his ideology got developed into this anti-Semitic type of that was associated with the Nazi regime. What happened after that? Oh, also in England at this time, there was a lot of Jews in England who were trying to set up the state of Israel. Well, it was just the Palestinian state. They're trying to set up a Jewish state in Israel, in Palestine. And there was this guy named Chaim Weissman, I believe was his name. And he also, from his own mouth, was telling the English that there was this conspiracy of Jewish bankers all over the place. And it wasn't. It was a lie. He was lying to them to try and get them to give Jews a place to live in Israel. That's where like this conspiracy theory came from, largely, is because he was just lying just to try and get the English to do what he wanted, basically. And then the Nazis took power in Germany, and Hitler did help them out a lot economically, helped the Germans out a lot economically. You know, unemployment, there was like 5 million unemployed Germans at the time in the 1930s, and he made that go away.
But Hitler tried a couple of times to get elected, right? Like his party, they like started really small, and they tried to get voted in. And they failed a couple of times. There was even attempted as a coup too. Yeah, there was like a shootout, and
that's how he ended up going to prison. Is that I believe it was in Munich. He tried to like basically overthrow the government and like be in charge, and then the Weimar Republic basically put it out and put him in jail. And that's where he was when he wrote Mein Kampf, his book, is he was in prison from like 22 to 26 or something like that. I can't remember what year it was specifically. But yeah, the Nazis took over in Germany, and right before World War II completely broke out, well, the war had started. Germany had invaded Poland, but they hadn't invaded Russia or anything like that. The war was basically just in Poland. And there was a bunch of different documents floating around, a bunch of different books floating around on the U.S. side of the river, or on the U.S. side of the ocean, about like ethnically cleansing the Jews, or ethnically cleansing the Germans, and like how they're going to continue to be a problem generation after generation. These Germans are going to be problems, so we should ethnically cleanse them and get rid of them. And like these books were reviewed like by Time magazines and all these other different publications in the United States, which were also Jewish owned. So Goebbels took all that, the propaganda minister in the Nazi regime. He was showing that to their people, and these people started freaking out. They thought for sure, like, oh, there's this Jewish plot against us, and they beat all the world governments and all these different things. So I think that's why how do I explain it? I think that's more so why, like, at the end of the war, people always ask, like, why do they keep killing these Jews in these camps instead of using them as labor to help the war effort? I think these people, like, in their own brains, like, thought that these Jews were just going to, like, ruin their country once they lost the war. So they were trying to get rid of them as quickly as possible or whatever. It's amazing, all kinds of crazy stuff that people end up thinking is true, and like, they didn't know any better. Like, all they had was radio that was all coming from the Nazi party. Like, they don't know any better. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's manipulation at its finest.
Yeah.
So. They did it then, they can do it now.
Oh, so. They're even better at it now.
Yeah.
Look how divided they got all of us in this country alone.
What do you know about the war effort itself in World War II?
World War II?
Yeah.
So we kind of have this myth in the United States that we won the war, and it is kind of true, like, but the USSR, like, the Russians were the ones that really committed, like, everything to defeating the Nazis. And they, what was it? 1.1 million soldiers or something like that just died in battle for the Russian side. Like, they put a lot of work into the war, and kind of, they had to, and Stalin was complaining to FDR and Churchill that they need to open up a front in Europe. But it was mostly the Germans and the Russians back and forth. Like, that was the main focus of the war. And the Germans, using their blitzkrieg tactics and stuff like that, like, gained a lot of ground really early in the war, really fast. And they basically got stopped at the Battle of Stalingrad. That was kind of where the turning point of the war was, where the Germans were winning. They got to Stalingrad, and that was where Stalin said, enough, we're going to stop here. And they slugged it out for a few months, and then eventually the Russians won. And that's what turned the tide of the war, and the Russians started marching westward after that.
Yeah, they lost the Eastern Front. I think would you say the biggest mistake was trying to fight on two fronts?
The
Western and the Eastern Front?
No, I think by the time that Normandy happened, like, the Germans had basically lost the war. I think where they messed up is they should have treated the Japanese like an actual ally, because basically why the Soviets were getting hit on so hard right away in the war is they had their forces split up. So they had some guys way out east in Siberia thinking that the Japanese were going to attack because they were allied with the Germans. And then a Soviet spy in the Japanese government let the Soviets know, like, hey, Japan has no plan of attacking. You can move these soldiers out of Siberia and put them towards the war effort against the Germans. So if Hitler had used the Japanese as an ally and they both clinched Russia from each side, then I feel like they could have probably pulled it off, at least for the Russians. As soon as the U.S. got involved, though, they were going to lose.
Yeah.
It was funky. I watched a documentary on it maybe a month or so ago, World War II, and it's crazy to see, like, how, and I get the times, everybody was kind of hurting in general. No country was super successful by any means. How unwilling people were to go stop the Germans right away. Like, Nobody wanted to go fight them. They saw what they were doing to Poland, and they were like, should we get involved or no? It seemed like no one wanted to come save the day and stop it, nip it in the bud right away.
Yeah, that's kind of the big things that Neville Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister of England before Churchill, and he didn't want no part of any war with the Germans because World War I, like they basically traded their empire after the First World War, putting all those resources into winning that war, and they got nothing for it. Yeah. So Neville Chamberlain like really didn't want to do it. But Churchill, they did a vote of no confidence, got rid of Neville Chamberlain, put in Churchill. Churchill was really for the war. And like, if you think about it, it's kind of messed up that the English said, we're going to start this war with the Germans to defend Poland. Like they cared about Poland, and they just gave it to the Russians after the war was over. And the Russians did messed up stuff to the Poles after that anyway. So it was,
that's so weird.
Yeah. What do you think about the talk? I guess there's some theories out there about Churchill and his involvement in the war.
What do you mean?
You saw some of those videos, right?
Which one?
About Churchill?
I don't know.
Okay. I might be just talking out of my ass right now.
Churchill wasn't like as great of a guy as like we like to think he is in the West.
That's what I'm saying. Like they make him out to be this like shining knight.
Yeah, no, he was definitely like a warmonger. Like the English involvement in the First World War was basically all Churchill's fault. And it's like he writes in his personal diaries about how much he knows that going to war would be wrong, but he just wanted it so bad, just wanted to get England involved in these wars.
Do you think that if World War I didn't happen, all the rest of it wouldn't have happened?
I don't know. I bet you there'd be some other type of war over something else, probably, but World War II as it was probably wouldn't have happened. No, the Germans were really pissed after the First World War.
Yeah. But that movie, if you guys haven't seen it, All Quiet on the Western Front, dude, that movie is freaking crazy.
It's horrific. Yeah,
it's crazy.
I heard the books a lot. I haven't read that book, but I heard the books way worse.
We watched the movie in school. I think we also read the book. Mm-hmm. I think we did both. And I remember it being good. I like the noise that they make throughout the entire film. That like, it's just like it pulls you into the movie every single time you hear that noise. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So,
but there was a lot of bombings and city bombings back and forth, right?
Oh yeah. I was just reading something about the fire bombings in Dresden that the Allies did. So this is towards the end of the war. The English especially started bombing German cities, and it was like basically every city with a population of more than 50,000. They were hitting all these smaller cities, and these fire bombs just like charred people into like tiny corpses, completely residential, had no military value. They were just doing it as like a terror campaign. And they started firebombing all these smaller towns. People were fleeing into Dresden. They thought that Dresden was a European cultural site, so they wouldn't bomb Dresden. So it started filling up with all these people from all these different towns. And then Dresden got firebombed, just cooked so much of the population to nothing. That's pretty messed up. So reading stories about like delirious like women like carrying suitcases with their charred kids in it and like freaking out and
yeah. But I think it went both ways too, right? They were bombing English cities too.
Oh yeah. The Battle of Britain was pretty bad. They were bombing England, trying to get them to surrender basically, because Germany had no navy, so they had no way to invade England. They were just trying to firebomb them or bomb them to get them out of the war.
What do you think about the conspiracy theory of FDR knowing the attack on Pearl Harbor was going to happen?
I haven't looked into that one too much.
So I guess the theory is that they knew it was going to happen, and they had all of their aircraft carriers out at sea at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So none of them were at port. And that's when the Germans came in the Japanese came in attack and bombed Pearl Harbor. But there was
but we had forewarning about
their
it.
goal was to take out the aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
That was their goal.
Mm-hmm.
And from my understanding, I don't think they took out any of the aircraft carrier. I could be wrong, but
No.
I believe
Not that I can remember. I don't think they got any aircraft
3
carriers.
for sure that made it, I think.
Yeah.
But there was some weird stuff too with like they had radar of the planes coming in. They thought it was like a flock of birds.
They thought it was a group of bombers that were coming in from California, I think it was. So
Okay.
they monitored them coming in like the entire way, but they thought they were these bombers coming in. But that's part of the conspiracy theory, I remember, because what they thought were these bombers were coming in from the east somewhere instead of the west, or from the west, because it would be coming in from the east from California.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. I know FDR was having a lot. He wanted the war,
Yeah.
but
It wasn't popular with the citizens.
yeah, it wasn't popular or in Congress either, because Congress was Republican controlled at the time. The Republicans were hardcore isolationists at the time.
Did you guys see that video I sent you on the dude that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima?
Yeah.
That was a crazy video. He was just like, same circumstances, I 100% do it again, no problem.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was talking about too about like when he dropped the bomb and they were turning out of there, like just feeling, the aftershock of it too, like from the plane. He's like, it was G forces that hit us, like it was crazy.
Got 2 G's.
Yeah.
From just the aftershock.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of talk lately of the camps and stuff, and some discrepancies with the total number that they've come up with. And there's talk of people saying that they never, cooked anybody in the oven, and there was no great replacement, whatever it was called.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about all that?
I don't know a ton about that. I think where a lot of those types of theories come from is more so that like World War II is a myth for the United States of like, we're the good guys and we beat this huge evil. And so people don't like to have like real conversations about it. They just want to keep it pretty black and white like that. Like, we're the good guys and we never did anything wrong, and they're the bad guys and do everything wrong all the time.
True.
So I think, people freaking out when somebody has a counter narrative to that at all creates more of those kinds of weird conspiracies about Holocaust denialism or whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised if the numbers were wrong. But
Yeah. I think the numbers for sure are at least wrong in this one, because
Possibly over.
I mean they've done the math on like how long it would take to have killed that many people, and they're just like, it's just not feasible.
yeah,
It's like, I don't even know the numbers exactly, but it's like, tens of thousands per day that would have had to been, killed to pull this off within the time frame that supposedly it all went down. So
I should look into it more, but it's one of those things where like people are trying to convince you of something. So like if you're watching it, like it's never objective. They're like,
yeah, you got all these presuppositions going into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my main thing, though, is that there's people that flat out think that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. That's
Or they show pictures and evidence from, those times where, they've got all these like, manufacturing and sewing, companies, and people were just jolly and making stuff and knitting and, living life, and they're doing musicals. And I mean, it's just like, supposedly this is evidence of what was going on in these camps that is complete opposite of what they led us to believe.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist for sure, but like that'd be like way too big to try and cover up. Like that's a lot of people involved that you got to keep quiet for the whole thing to be made up, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, then the thing is that he didn't, it wasn't just Jews that got killed. It was like gypsies and
Yeah, gypsies
Poles
and gays and I think Catholics
disabilities,
Yep.
mental people, like
That's
anybody that
crazy.
was like not, I guess, normal according to them was taken out.
as well. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. So on the note of conspiracy theories, like World War I and World War II, there's a lot of speculation that this was all for financial gain. Like the wars were started from financial gain. Do you know much about that? And if so, like who would have been the beneficiaries of all that type of activity.
I know there's a book that came out of an officer who served in the First World War. War is a Racket. I've heard of that one. And I think that's like where the beginning of like the military industrial complex came from, and where people were making tons and tons of money off of war. I don't know specifically. I guess I don't know specifically if there was any kind of financial gain like that involved with the First World War.
It had something to do with banks, with banking and all that stuff too. Like that, this is, like you said, it's what started the war machine essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would guess so.
That's crazy.
I mean, somebody's always making money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just crazy that we're talking about something that's happened like 100 years ago, and it's still being brought up today.
Yeah.
As if it.
This is what they're going to do with COVID in 100 years.
Yeah.
They're going to speculate that it was real or fake, and if it was all conspiracy. And I mean, this is how it works, man.
Yep.
100% how it works, which I believe is all planned that way.
For sure.
Cause mass confusion and you know what I mean? Then nobody knows what direction to look in correctly. And then make sure that you condemn and convict people of believing one of the narratives to be, you know what I mean? So it's like, then all of a sudden you got guilt laid on top of them for thinking this. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like a weird psychological thing that like you
for
want
sure.
to talk about Nazis or something. You got to say, I condemn Nazis. And like, you got to say all those prayers.
They do that today with like
about
Jews in Israel.
Yeah.
You have to be real careful.
Yeah. You have to say, I don't hate Jews or whatever. I just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Or you'll be anti-Semite.
Yeah.
It's that survey or that picture I sent you with the term Nazi, how it skyrocketed during like the 40s and 50s.
Oh yeah.
And then it just crashed. And then all of a sudden during like 2015, it skyrocketed again. And now it's like way up there again.
Kanye's keeping it alive now.
Well, you got these crazy lefties that are going around putting swastikas on Teslas.
Yeah.
And then saying, they're putting posters of Elon doing this. And then the Tesla factory or something like that. It's like,
and they're so certain that that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But
crazy. When
Tim Walz did it, when all these other Kamala Harris, everyone else has ever done it, nobody blinks an eye on it, and like I've had people, because I posted like other, leftist politicians doing the same damn thing and being like, why don't we, I don't think he did it and I don't think they did either.
No.
But the way that they're spinning it, it's just like, what has he done historically that makes you so convinced that he specifically is doing the Nazi salute, but none of the other politicians, or even though they're doing the exact same mannerisms, and no one ever has an answer. They're just like, come on, you know what this is. And I'm just like, no, I don't believe Tim Walz was doing the Nazi salute either. But why are you so certain that Elon is? What has he done historically that makes you pinpoint him as being a Nazi? And the only other argument I've ever had was, well, because he's from South Africa.
Yeah.
I'm like, so? Like, I don't get it. South Africa.
It's crazy, though, because, like, these are the same people, like, drawing swastikas on the car are probably, like, the same people that are, like, screaming, like, anti-Jew stuff.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. That's how you know they're led by the propaganda, bro. They watch CNN and then they just believe everything CNN, because 100% of their ideology matches the nonsense that you get from mainstream media.
I think this is being paid agitators.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I don't know if this is true, but I heard that guy that they arrested that was a permanent resident, that Muhammad Khalil or whatever his name is.
Oh, that dude that they're planning on deporting?
Yeah.
The green card holder guy?
Yep. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that he has some type of security clearance from the UK.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true, but if that is true, then the guy is clearly working for a foreign government and trying to agitate the United States.
Okay.
But it just seems, all of it just seems so strange. Like, why would all of these college kids that are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year not go to school and just sit there and protest all the time? It's very
virtue
strange.
signaling.
Well,
true. College that agrees with them too.
Yeah. Right. Columbia, like the most liberal college out there. But it just, of course, there's probably students that generally care for that movement, but it just seems too out there.
But how come none of them could ever argue in their defense as to why? That's what blows my mind, is that they think they're standing on a position, but then you just say, okay, cool, just tell me why. Why do you feel this way? And then just like, fuck you. They get all mad and just freak out on you. It's just like, no, I just want to know why. Like, explain yourself, because they don't know.
Yeah.
They're just following the leader. It's groupthink. You know what I mean? They don't want to be excluded because that's really bad. So they just virtue signal and pretend. And then when you challenge them with logic, they don't have an answer. They just kind of stare at you blank, and then you're an asshole. And then they start screaming at you, and it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's like a big problem coming up here on the right too, is like leftists have been calling people on the right Nazis for so long that I think there's like a lot of these like incel type of kids that are coming up. They're like actually just going to be Nazis. That
Yeah. Oh, no, they're definitely creating them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I see like crazy left field comments in like YouTube videos and stuff like that I never saw 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time on this show, about how, like, you know, even just the whole BLM thing and the big divide that was created in 2020 over that stuff. Even though I'm a minority, Dion's a minority, we've always stood on this side of the fence being like, no, that it doesn't look that way to us and we're minorities. You always get painted a certain way for taking that position, you know what I mean? But in the sense of like whether people are actually Nazis or not, it can be argued, but most of the people on the right who want to stand in defense, and I will say white people primarily, don't realize that they are sort of becoming borderline racist in their anger and their frustration and, you know, just being sick and tired. They're getting to the point where they're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
And then they say things that they shouldn't be saying, you know, and we have to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, we stand on this side with you guys, but not in that position. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we agree with, you know? So, yeah, I've had to like block people or delete comments from my Facebook who, like, you know, they see a brown dude being like, yeah, Trump this, Trump that. And they're like, yeah, that's right. And F that. You know, like, I have to bleep that. But, you know, like, they just go off really hard. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I was saying. But it happens all the time. And so, like, yeah, to the point that they're creating the Nazis out of just kind of making it a mainstream thing and calling everyone on the right, you know, racist and Nazis and all this. And all of a sudden you start seeing these small groups of people show up and they're just like, yeah, we're Nazis, man. That's right. And then you got this whole new clique of, you know, social people that are out there creating this nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it does. The hate and the anger, I think, just makes people go to a point where they don't even realize it. Like, I don't think the conservative, you know, right or the white people in that, you know, are necessarily racist. But I think their frustration, their anger, and their hate sometimes makes them show some racism without them realizing that they were being racist. That happens a lot, for sure.
Like one YouTube comment I saw, like I sat and read the whole thing. It was like a book, and this dude's like talking about like the Egyptians were actually white, and like talking about all this crazy conspiracy stuff about like white people were basically in charge of like every big civilization that's ever come out.
They do that with black culture too, though. You know, blacks created everything, started everything, invented
They are the
everything.
culture.
Yeah, Beethoven was black. They just they're hiding it from us because, you know, and then they show like his looks and his features and his hair texture, and they're just like, they made him look white in pictures, but he was a black man. They just don't want you to know that historically. And I'm like, okay.
Definitely a big problem with like young people that we run into is they just want views, social media views.
Oh yeah,
and so
everything's about click now.
Say the craziest stuff in order to get the views, and then you kind of have to back it up, or you have to create the argument at least, even if you don't believe in it. And people, I mean, I do the same thing, not crazy stuff, but like if I'm talking to my buddy, I'm gonna win the argument. That's my goal,
sure.
whether I'm right or wrong. I don't care. So I think that is definitely something younger people run into, where they're saying things to get views and not.
Yeah, everything's based on clickbait now. Yeah. We've done it, you know, with the way we name some of our shows, just because I want to get people to come and watch the damn thing. So sometimes I'll name an episode where it, you know, or I'll put in the description some clickbait stuff, and it gets the curiosity out of them, and then they'll come watch our shit. So yeah, it's part of society for sure, which sucks.
Definitely.
I think that well, going back to paid agitators, I think it kind of ties in with everything like that we've talked about, that there's deep state in all of these different governments that are working together. But I think I think the CIA is probably at the top of that game.
They're at the center of it for sure.
But going back to what we were talking about earlier with Manson, there's a book that came out called Chaos, and this documentary was just released on Netflix, and they were talking about that. But they were saying that Charles Manson was heavily introduced through the CIA, LSD, and basically how mind control and how to control people. And during that time period, there was a lot of turmoil within the United States because there was the war was going on in Vietnam. And then you had the Black Panthers, and the CIA didn't want anything to do. They basically just wanted the war to keep going. Right. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to do anything that they could to disrupt the hippie movement and the Black Panther movement. And so what better way to do that than to get some psycho guy, mind control him, get a bunch of hippies to follow him and murder people, and then try to pin it on.
Do you really think he was crazy before they got a hold of him though? Or do you think because okay, so that's a good point. The theory is he ended up what was it like Haight-Ashbury Hospital in San Francisco or whatever, where they already were. The CIA was already suspected to be running some kind of MK Ultra program and stuff. Well, this is the very hospital where Charles Manson ended up going to, and so the theory is that Jolly West guy was there running these programs and must have got his hands on Charles Manson at this point. And it was the drugs that, they gave him access to the drugs. There was the time where he didn't want to get out of jail. He wanted to stay there. Yeah. All these different things, but the LSD, the hallucinogenics, everything that they were providing him is what made him crazy. And they used it to MK Ultra him. And then they sent him out on a mission to create this race war between blacks and whites, and they used the hippie movement to do so, and Charles Manson was at the helm of that. So
that's a good point, because he said that Jack Ruby, who was the guy that shot Oswald,
yes,
Jolly West went into his cell for 2 hours, and he came back out, and he basically said that Jack Ruby's mind was like melted.
That's right. Wild. Did he go crazy right before?
Yeah.
And then he died of cancer?
Yeah.
Like a couple years later or something like that?
He didn't testify. He was supposed to testify. He didn't testify. And this was literally after Jolly West went and visited him in his cell.
And it's known, too, that MK Ultra is real. The CIA had to admit to it back in the day already, and there was tons of proof of that. So it's not so much of a conspiracy theory to say that they were doing this already at that point. It's just whether or not Charles Manson was one of their puppets. I don't think we have foolproof evidence of that.
And it wasn't just the CIA, it was the FBI too, because they were going after Martin Luther King too.
Right. Which is part of why they wanted the race war, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted they blackmailed him, and they were sending him some basically nasty letters trying to get him to commit suicide. And hopefully we'll get the files on exactly what happened, but obviously he was taken out.
Yeah. We're not gonna. It's gonna be sad.
But the other one we were talking about was the Unabomber, old Ted Kaczynski. What can you tell us about that, Gage?
So Ted Kaczynski, he kind of went crazy. He had this. I've read through his manifesto a couple times. See if I can kind of get his point across right. Basically, he thought that the innovation, the technological innovation the United States has been having is going to lead to a point where create a techno state where AI is in charge of everything. And he thought that computers are going to run everything and people are going to be subservient to them. So he started.
Damn fortune teller.
Yeah. That's why he's kind of been coming back up again. Yeah. It's it fits for the age now, but it didn't at the time. He'd look, and he started sending letter bombs to all different types of scientists and stuff like that, basically trying to blow them up to slow down this progress, I guess. And he eventually was caught. He was living up in Montana, was it?
Out in the woods?
Yeah, out in the woods in a cabin in Montana.
A shack out there or something.
Yeah. And he was, after he got caught, he was supposed to be getting the death penalty for it. And the way that he got out of that is it came out in court that when he was in college, he had to sit down with this CIA psychologist that worked for, for the OSS first, I think, during the war, and then CIA after that.
Office of Strategic something.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but
Systems,
something like that. And this dude was basically had him participate in this experiment where he would just like sit him down and rip on like all his ideas he has for like an hour and a half, and he did this like every day for like years straight. And so they use that to get him off the death penalty, because like, hey, this dude must have messed his mind up to like become violent, basically. That was the craziest part to me, is that the CIA dude's involved.
Yeah, every time they
Seems
show
like
up,
that
something
happens,
like this.
right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like I mean, I can't get over the attempted assassination on Trump and this kid who had like multiple cell phones, which not easy to come across. That he had encrypted messaging, the wiping of his entire house, like no silverware. How is that not still a big story? How is that not still a major topic in society right now? And now that Trump's in office, how are they not going after all
Kim
this?
Cheadle, the director of Secret Service, said they didn't put snipers or anybody up there because the roof was too slanted.
Right. But then the snipers who took out the attempted assassin were on a way steeper slope than that guy was. In fact, I think it was Elon who said that he went. This was from the Joe Rogan podcast. He said he went there with President Trump to scope the scene when they were going to go back to Butler, and he's like, that was if you were a sniper, the position that kid was in was the single greatest advantage point for assassinating President Trump at the time.
Yeah.
So how did everybody, the Secret Service and all of them, miss that? They didn't.
There's no way that
they didn't miss
up
it.
to competence, or like that's just no way.
But why isn't that still being investigated?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Why isn't Trump talking about it?
Yeah, why isn't Trump like, now that I'm in office, I need you to find out more about this kid, because we can find out information on anybody, but all of a sudden this teenage weirdo kid, he's outsmarted our entire government system.
In a BlackRock commercial.
Yeah. Like, come on, man.
Were both the shooters in BlackRock commercials?
I don't think Ruth was, but he was. So my understanding is that he went and tried to join the Ukrainian army, but they kicked him out because he was too crazy.
That's right.
That's wild.
So they sent him back.
And the kid too, though, the other thing about the kid was they tracked a phone from his house to a FBI location in like New York or something like that.
It was close to the office.
And it was like multiple visits to his house at the time. But all of this has just been swept under the rug, especially the whole house thing. Like, that blows my mind, because he lived with his parents.
Mm-hmm.
Has nobody interviewed his parents? And how has none of that ever become public to us?
Another interesting
How has the media not touched this at all? Like, it's weird that they all seem to agree as a whole of what they will and won't advance in the media and talk about on both sides of the fence, though. The Democrats and the Republicans. It's almost like it's one big show, and they're all in agreement on how this narrative is going to be played out, and then we just have to sit here like damn puppets and shut up.
Do you remember seeing that video of his dad in Costco? He was wearing gloves.
Yes.
And then there was somebody that was with him that had a hood up and sunglasses on.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That whole situation's always been
It's
like
wild.
on my mind.
Yeah, it's
3
wild.
weeks later, no one was talking about it, and I was
Right.
like, God, that's so funky.
But now, we as in the Trump administration, they're in a winning position to be able to make heads roll and find things out, and there's been no activity around it. It's like, this is the single greatest. That was probably the turning point for Trump, where the majority of people jumped on board and got behind him. And for some reason, it's the least, bothersome thing about his entire campaign right now that he's president.
There's no way that he's not asking questions.
I don't know.
There's no way.
Maybe it'll come out still. Who knows? But as it stands, it doesn't seem like anything's going to come of it.
I don't think anything's going to
And
come
of all
of it.
thing, like, Kash Patel was supposed to be the dude.
Yeah.
The dude.
I don't think it has much to do with him. I just don't think that they can let those secrets out, unfortunately.
I guess if it involves a foreign government, then that creates a bigger issue. Like I was talking about with this guy, if he is being employed by a foreign government, it can cause a global issue.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I'd say I don't like.
Hold on. Think about it. If we found out that this kid was, in fact, let's say Iran, let's say he was employed by Iran.
Mm-hmm.
if that got out into the public, what do you think Trump supporters are going to want?
To hurt
Attack
Iranian
Iran,
people.
yeah.
They're going to want war.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
if that's
still,
true, and Trump
Or
is keeping
here's
that
another
secret.
scenario. What if he was in the pocket of Israel and we don't want no one to find out
Assad?
because we're protecting Israel
Dude,
in our government?
Dude, they almost killed the guy. You think he's going to keep that secret?
Just saying.
Dude, there's no
Depends.
way.
It depends on how deep they got him,
He
bro.
almost got his head
What are
blown
your
off.
thoughts on this, Gage? Well, as far, how do you
Yeah,
feel
let's
about
hear it.
our government and their worship of
Israel.
and Zionism being, primary to, Americanism and all that?
Careful. He's a Jew.
Yeah, it makes me mad. Like, Trump's not really an American first guy. He's more of an America second guy.
Yeah.
But it's
I mean,
better
his
than-
entire cabinet.
Yeah.
But our entire government is this way.
Yeah. And
It's
the-
on both sides.
And like most of the thing is, I keep like going like, oh, Israel's got a lot of influence over our government. And then I
But
think
why?
I kind of think that like most of the American people are like just default pro-Israel. So I think that's kind of part of like why they got so much influence. But yeah, I don't like it at all.
But it is a good question. What is the point? Like, for what? Like, they say Israel is our greatest ally. How would they be classified as the greatest ally? What have they done?
They haven't done any. They'll tell you that they give us a lot. The Mossad gives us a lot of intelligence reports for like
Yeah, like 9/11, the Iraq War, all these failed intel that they gave us. Yeah.
that we did like on behalf of the Israeli government, basically. Like, was it Benjamin Netanyahu who came before Congress in like 2002 and said, "Hey, you guys should like
invade Iraq."
Yeah. They got stuff. You need to go get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to come out on top, this is how you do it. And we listened.
Yep. Yeah, we basically like outsourced all our.
And what did we find? There any weapons of mass destruction? Nope.
We got rid of a government that was hostile towards it.
For sure.
Though.
And they put a World Bank there, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Yep.
So that's always been a common denominator in all of these wars, these major wars where we've gone and attacked, is they were lacking a World Bank, and after the war, they weren't.
Yep.
I try to think of it like as a strategic standpoint. Like, what would be the strategic reason why we're so obsessed with Israel?
There isn't one. That's the problem.
I think.
But hold on. If let's say Israel's not there,
Okay.
how do you think that the Middle East would look?
I bet you'd be a lot more peaceful
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
With like
if there was no
nobody
Israel.
to keep anybody in check or anything.
Yeah, I think they'd kind of figure their stuff out.
Do you think like the rich princes would take over? And
They might, but it'd still be a lot more stable than it is right now. It's just like,
We just have a lot of boxing.
yeah,
Isn't that what they're putting all their money into right now? These princes?
A lot of mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
I guess that's. It seems like that was their main point, was to keep stability in the Middle East.
I'm
I'm
think
sure
it's
that's
doing
the
the
narrative.
opposite.
Yeah.
It's definitely doing the opposite. Like,
Over the past like 10 years, at least you can say it has done the opposite completely.
Well, I mean, they've been fighting with each other, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, but it doesn't look good. I'm still very, pro America, and I believe Trump is the better guy for the job right now. But particularly his team goes way harder about their love for Israel and their Zionism, like than even the left, Democrats did.
yeah,
So it's concerning for sure, because it's like every single person that he put into office right now, as far as like defense and, the FBI, they all have an allegiance to Zionism.
yeah, basically,
Very strong one.
basically everybody in his circle, except for like Tucker Carlson's like the only dude that just like,
Right.
he just says, I just don't care about Israel. I just like America,
Right.
which is where I'm at. Like, Israel can do whatever it wants. I don't care. Just don't use my money to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, my biggest thing is I just want to understand why.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I want to get on board. Maybe I want to have an allegiance to Zionism too. But I just need to know why we do that and why it's necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Otherwise, to me, it looks fishy, and it doesn't look good on behalf of the American government to be that way, because it should be America first.
Yeah. And like, especially Israel, like all these other countries that we give money to, like we give them this money with an expectation of them to do something like, hey, we're going to give you this $40 million or whatever. And in exchange, you're going to do this. With the money we give Israel, like none of that, like no strings attached. Plus, and they're in a budgetary surplus. Like they're collecting more in taxes than their government spending every year. So like, why are we doing this?
We're taxing Ukraine right now for the amount of money that the Biden administration gave to him. Trump's hardcore about that. Like it was a loan. You got to give us something for it or give us that money back type. Yeah. But we've given more to Israel in the same time span, and Trump hasn't mentioned a single word.
Yeah, I just don't know. And then also his Ivanka Trump's husband,
Jared Kushner.
He's Benjamin Netanyahu is his godfather.
What?
Yeah,
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yes, 100% true.
And Kanye West tapped his wife.
Kanye's claiming he tapped his wife, bro.
Yeah. So I don't think like Trump.
I think Kanye knows more than we're giving him credit for knowing. Too.
After you
he's not playing with his thing about the Jews. I saw a meme, or I don't know if it was real, but it looked like a meme to me. They said Kanye decided to convert to Judaism, so they can't call him an anti-Semite anymore.
I don't know. He's been that thing with the kids.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That wasn't cool.
Weird, dude. And he wants Diddy out of prison.
Yeah, I feel like he's trolling, but really tasteless trolling.
I mean, the post was tasteless trolling. That post was real. The one where he said he wants the kids and they got to shave their head if they want to be in the choir. No, I'm not bringing my kid anywhere near you, dog. No. Like he's not gonna be at your church. That's not real church. I don't know what people are thinking, and like. When he posts like the Nazi stuff, people to share it and stuff. Chase sent it to me and I was like, dude, you have to understand, like, this is exactly what they want. They want you to share it. You sharing it, being upset about it is something that they feed off of. And now you have to think of all the pages that posted that same thing and somebody shared it. Now they've got 60 million shares.
Wonder,
like,
how did he be like, he lost all his money because of his anti-Semitism and then doubled it. Yep. He went from being a billionaire to a multi-billionaire. So is he how during all of this? You know what I mean? How did he become that? It almost seems like everyone's controlled right now. And they're all playing to the hand of whatever they're being told to do. Even the ones who are opposing each other, they're all just playing the game, it seems like, man. Whether it be celebrities, politicians, world leaders,
I don't think that's
athletes.
Kanye. I think it's a clone.
I mean, I don't know. I believe it's him for some reason. I don't
that's not Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx is a clone for sure, yo. Jamie Foxx is definitely a clone.
I'm not on board.
I never seen tattoo removal that good, especially on somebody's skull, first of all. And he removed them tattoos and added hella freckles.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what happens. That's cancerous, those lasers.
I guess, maybe. So freckles are cancerous?
I don't know what kind of freckles he has. Maybe.
Hey, how about Canada puffing their chest at us?
Yeah, they got ballsy. That their new prime minister or whatever. He came out like he was just a bad boy, bro.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They said they were going to cut off the electricity to the
New York,
the three states, New York, Michigan.
Did you see Trump just said too? He's going to impose 200%. Tariffs on them if they keep playing this game. Yeah.
So I don't get it because like what I saw was that the guy, whoever that is, he said he was going to shut the electricity off, and then I thought Trump said, "Oh, we talked about it and we worked it out." I see so much conflicting.
I know he
stuff.
Stalled the tariff imposition on them just the other day.
Yeah, for the electricity. That was like the trade they made.
Yeah.
Okay. He said,
"See, this is what that video that we played of Ronald Reagan the other day was talking about." How, he was saying how first, they'll tell you that tariffs are a good thing. And then you'll start to see, everyone starts slapping tariffs on each other and they just keep going back and forth. And this leads to greater conflict. And so he was basically saying back then, tariffs are a bad idea, a really bad idea because it just creates greater conflict.
And now
we're seeing that play out. Huh?
His son said,
Reagan's son came out with the statement.
Yeah.
What do you say?
He said, stop using my father as in,
like a Trump hater,
something like whatever about tariffs. He's like, this was 30 some years ago.
So what? Who's his son besides his son?
He basically was saying like, stop using my dad to claim that Trump is a bad guy for wanting to do this.
Tariffs.
And he didn't say like that he was for or against it, but that was a long time ago and things are different.
But that doesn't hold any weight.
I mean, things are different now.
It's a lot different compared to the 80s.
Sure, but seems to be playing out like you said
For
even
now.
from the 80s, yeah.
But it's all about negotiation.
yeah.
It's a deal.
We'll see.
Who said
hold on,
that?
if Canada is going to tariff us 200 to 3%, 200% to 300% on certain products, why is it not okay for us to do the same thing?
It's not that it's not okay. It's just that it's a game he initiated that he claimed.
These countries have tariffs on us.
No,
too.
I know they did, but this is a game that Trump initiated, was to say, okay, well, let's play the tariffs game with them.
Yeah,
and it's backfiring on him now. I don't know, but it's backfiring on him the way he's doing it.
It's not.
They're coming to the table and renegotiating.
I feel like they got the upper hand on us with the electricity thing.
No, they They backed down right away.
Trump backed out.
No. The other guy once he said that I'm going to put 200% tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum, the guy's like, oh wait, no, we're not going to do that anymore.
I haven't seen that.
He backed out.
I only saw that Trump said he wasn't going to impose the tariffs yet, that they were going to go back to the table and talk more because they said they were going to shut off the electricity.
They made an agreement, him and whoever that guy is. I wish I knew
can't remember
who he
his
was.
name.
Mark something.
Yeah,
But
Mark
they
something.
made an agreement to meet before the 2nd of April is what happened. He said, hey, that guy had some good ideas, blah, blah, blah. We'll do this if they do that. But he's decided he wants to meet in person. He's going to come to the United States and we'll hold a conference is what I remember seeing, but I could be wrong. Either way, I don't think it plays out the same way. I think it is time for us to stop being abused by everybody. I don't want to pay for
trust me,
all
I'm all about strong arming, bro, for sure. But we got to do it in a way that definitely sends the message and doesn't give them the balls to be like, okay, we could play that game too. So I just feel it's weird.
But they can't, because America economically is the strongest in the world. Economically, like even China can't feed all their citizens. Like that, they only feed the rich people, I guess.
Yeah.
But because they have so many freaking people, they can't feed them all. But America economically is the strongest in the world. They can't sustain what they're talking about. They can't sustain it. Any of these other countries can't sustain it. So United States, Canada, and Mexico, they're going to renegotiate that U.S. MCA trade agreement.
Have you guys seen where he's talking about, oh, whoever made that deal is stupid, and then it was him that made the deal?
No.
That's it.
They did make a deal in his first term, but
Yeah.
Biden came in and it basically went away.
Oh, because everyone's like, dude, Donald Trump made that deal. I don't know why he's saying
with
it's
the
stupid.
USMCA, and it was a good deal, but when the Biden administration came in, the deal changed. And
So he's referring to whoever made the deal to undo his deal.
Yep.
Okay.
Interesting, because I haven't seen that part. I have only seen, and I looked it up too. I was like, huh. And it says Trump signed the deal. So
Where'd you look it up though?
I mean, just on Google, but
Yeah, there you go.
when the Biden
Google is
administration
CNN of search webs, bro.
came in, when Biden came in, he basically reversed everything that Trump did.
Yeah,
And
day one.
The whole thing about all these other tariffs is his end goal is to make it too expensive to outsource all of these businesses out of the United States. So he wants to bring them back into the United States. That is the end goal. But it's going to take time. It's going to take time.
Oh, I'm with that, bro. I get it. And I even understand that there's going to be some collateral damage in the process of fixing America.
Sure.
And there's going to be some pain, and we're going to have to suffer through some minor things here and there. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like things are getting weird. And for some reason every time things seem weird, Israel pops up in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So PBD made a good point. He said, when you're trying to retrain an entire company, it takes 90 days.
Yeah.
Now you got to think of it as a country. How long is that going to take? Months, maybe years to get to where you want to be?
Mm.
Even Trump said it right away. We're going to go through some pain right away.
He did say it.
But it's going to come back. And now even the stock market's coming back.
Yeah.
The interest
Eggs
rates
dropped.
The
Gas
interest rates
dropped.
are dropping. Eggs are dropping. Gas is dropping. Like it's slowly working its way to where it's supposed to be. But like I said, the end goal is to get all of those companies that are outsourced, like what I was talking about. My dad's companies moved to Mexico. Get those back in the United States, and that's going to create jobs. It's going to make Americans more wealthy, and in the end, it's going to be better for everybody.
It's kind of crazy how it till deep into 2022, like they were saying, like, oh, the economy's messed up because of what Trump did, not Biden. And then now Trump's been in for 6 weeks, and they're like, oh, this economy sucks and it's Trump's fault. It's like, dude, you gave that dude 2.5 years.
They're so full of it, bro. They're so full of it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think that Trump he's going to do what it takes to get these guys to negotiate. And it just seems like all of these supposed countries that are our friends are not our friends.
They aren't.
They only play nice with the United States because we have the biggest checkbook.
Yeah.
But when it comes to it, all these mother effers are all taxing us out of the wazoo.
And they're snaking us
not
out
only
of
that-
deals where they're supposed to be matching us in areas.
Like in NATO, we pay for what was it?
Everything.
It was a large portion of NATO,
Yeah.
and
In the billions.
Trump made a good point. He's like, "Do you think that all of these countries would come help us if we were in trouble?" He's like, "I don't think so." But it's a good point though, because and especially like the Ukraine war, we're funding that entire thing.
Yeah.
You know, and all these other Europeans that are right next door are not doing jack shit.
Oh, they offered to, but they said they need America to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh yeah, we'll give you $800 billion, but we're gonna need America with you."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just, like Dion said, I think it's time that we just need to step up and stop playing Big Brother to the entire world.
For real.
Or if we're going to, you better pay.
You gotta get something out of it.
You better fucking pay.
If you're going to play Big Brother, you need to start giving out some noogies or something.
Yeah.
And
Some
bitch slap
noogies.
these dudes, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just crazy to think about how much money like we get taxed since, and I'm young, so I haven't worked that long, but since I was 14, I feel like
Right.
I've only made more money, but I'm getting taxed like crazy.
Well, you've definitely funded some wars.
yeah, you know, like I'm somebody's doing really well with that money. It's not me.
Yeah.
So
And that's another thing. It's like Doge has been going on for about 2 months now, and you can watch the Doge counter. It's keeps going. But the end goal is hopefully that we get a huge tax break or less taxes. And like I said, I just
If you
saw-
make under 150K, apparently you won't pay taxes.
that would
That's
be
awesome.
so
That's the
crazy.
new buzz
that's
talk.
awesome.
Yeah.
But and I just
I don't know
saw
if I'd like that.
They said the new flex is going to be like, I pay taxes.
Yeah.
fool.
It's like
and I just saw
Now, I make six
they were-
figures, but man, I pay taxes.
you
I
just
mean,
hit
what do
that
you-
151.
What do you
You're
do?
like, what?
Do you guys remember when they were going to hire 70,000 IRS agents?
Yes, that was awful.
So I just saw
with
a headline,
guns.
a headline that they're gonna cut 20% of the IRS.
Beautiful. That's needed.
They trained them to shoot guns, and people were getting hurt.
I
Remember
bet
that?
you 95% of the job at the IRS can be done on computer by AI now.
For sure.
90 and more efficiently and effectively. Guaranteed.
And it's like same thing with the Department of Education. What are these people doing? Like we're like towards the bottom of reading and
Yeah.
math across the world.
Have you seen those kids? There's a couple kids who graduated like with honors and like 4.0 GPAs who are suing their schools, you know, or their colleges because they can't read and write.
Right, yeah.
Like I'm like,
Reading at like a 6th grade level.
Yes.
Or something.
That's
No.
insane.
that's insane.
Yeah.
Totally insane. But you could see it happening.
So
I got
again, it's
kids.
the Department of Education.
I got some really dumb ones and some really smart ones, and you could see where the discrepancies are.
Yeah.
We're in North Dakota or Minnesota. It's just the way it works out, man. I didn't make the rules, you know?
Yeah. But it's same. It's just our government got so freaking bloated, and we're funding all of these extra jobs that don't need to be there.
That's
just-
the
that's what
insane
it is.
thing. We're paying for these people to have jobs just because people want there to be more jobs, but they're not doing anything.
They're at
like,
home. They're sitting
why are
at
we
home."
firing all these people? It's like they're not doing jack shit, but they're making 75. They're making more money than you. Why are you
Yeah.
angry about
Yeah.
that? They don't do anything.
Because everyone wants to be a victim right now with whatever Trump and Elon are
Oh, for
doing.
sure.
And you know, they're claiming all this, the financial aid that's been cut to people for all these different things, all these different organizations. But 90% of the stuff they're saying that they're losing money to is lies. Some of it is these companies or these organizations are just shutting everything down so that they can blame Trump for being a bad guy. It's not really the orders they were given. They're just doing it and then going, blame Trump and Elon. This is what they did. The other half of them are making up BS about the money that's being lost for certain organizations. Doge posts everything from their list every day on doge.gov or whatever it is. And you can go on there and you can see in real time what companies and what organizations they're pulling aid from. And they've said it time and time again, we're not touching Medicaid, we're not touching and for some reason the narrative keeps getting spun through mainstream media that no, they're taking everything away from these companies and those companies. But if you just do a little bit of research and go, the problem is they're like, yeah, that's Elon's website. You think he's not lying? And it's just like, come on, man.
And then that I don't know if you guys saw that, but there was There was billions of dollars paid out in PPP loans to
Kids under 5.
yeah, children.
Kids under 5. Billions. That's wild.
People do the darndest things.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Those
How are they
loans
going
are
to pay
insane,
those
though.
loans back?
Those loans were like so like messed up. Everybody was doing that, especially in the hood. Like I remember watching so many videos where they're like, "Oh, I just got this new Hellcat." That was when Hellcats were going crazy.
Yep.
It's like, what are we doing? Where are you getting the money from? They're like, "Oh, I just started this business last week and applied for this
Got
loan."
this little scam going.
Yeah, and they're admitting it on friggin' Instagram and stuff. So I get it. I could imagine parents were probably doing that under their kid's name somehow.
Oh, for sure.
You know, but yes, I'm sure there was some not good governmental stuff going on with that too.
It's bad. Hell yeah. Good talks, man. Anything you want to add to the discussion? Any smart stuff you want to throw at us?
Yeah. You guys know that we like paid zero. Like we paid no taxes until 1913.
Yeah.
They set up the
It was the Fed, right?
yeah, we set up the Fed and
It
everything
was
else.
Rothschild?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, he was in charge of like setting it all up and like
Wasn't that what the conspiracy theory about what the Titanic was all about?
oh yeah, he
as a
like
result
sinking
of
all
it.
his competitors or whatever.
Yeah, the ones who were voting against the Fed
Yeah.
were on the boat. The rest of the guys were supposed to be who wanted the Fed to happen, and then mysteriously they all decided not to get on the boat, and so the people who were opposed to it died in the Titanic, coincidentally, and then the Fed was created.
Yeah. It's just crazy because we went over that part of history like in my history class when I was still in a history major 2 years ago. And it's crazy how the history books like read it to you like we had to start an income tax because otherwise there'd be all these billionaires running around doing whatever we want. It's like, well, I pay a quarter of my pay in taxes and there's still billionaires running around doing whatever they want. So obviously it didn't work.
Do you remember the percentage that it started out as? I always forget.
1 to 3%.
Yeah.
And there was like riots over it that there's going to be like a 1% tax on your income.
That's insane. 1 to 3%.
Could we go back to that?
That's what I'm saying. If Trump can just get us back to that in like the next 8 years or whoever takes over after him after this 4 years, they can get us back to that. I'd be so happy. To nothing would be ideal, but not the 150,000 mark.
This is the scary thing about how long it's going to take for us to recover and for him to really actually fix things is that his term will be over by the time we get anywhere, and then they're just going to come in and undo it again.
Yeah,
That's the scary part.
That's the thing with the executive orders is like they can't stick because you can just overturn them with another executive order.
We're talking about codifying all of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See, that's the tough thing. That's what I was mentioning before we voted was that like when we get down to the last year and a half, I just don't see them letting Trump make any progress. So like I think they're going to throw everything they can at him.
They will for the entirety of his office.
They haven't been as bad. I mean, so far they're coming out with all the media stuff, yes, but that's always going to be the way it is.
They're trying to impeach him again right now.
I saw
read
that
something
too.
about
Yeah.
that.
Al Green.
Yeah, Al Green is trying to petition it. Yeah, I saw
Which is
that.
crazy because he was the one disrupting the court. So it's like, what are we talking here? Well.
All right. Well, good conversation, Gage. Thanks for coming on and sharing some of your knowledge with us.
Yeah.
We all got a good history lesson and some World War I and World War II stuff. So appreciate you, man. Everybody else, thank you so much for checking us out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the channel, tell your friends about us. Don't tell your friends about us. Talk good, talk bad. It doesn't really matter as long as you are talking about us. Peace.